me again. This video is largely about the history of the Pennsylvania Railroad and its remnants of today, not the least of which is the car in which we're riding, which is one of the most opulent cars ever built for the Pennsylvania Railroad. I mentioned earlier I worked for the Long Island Railroad Company. For approximately 50 years, the Pennsylvania Railroad owned us. In fact, that's where we got our signal system from, and unlike certain other railroads in the Northeast, we still have maintained much of our history. We still have old position light signals. We still have old pedestal type signals. And until 2.5 weeks ago, we actually had main track towers, wayside towers, where a block operator literally could wave at you as you went by, and many of them did, especially if the engineers knew them. We were never known to throw inanimate objects or such at one another. I've heard such stories, but I would never partake of them myself. Anyway, once the Long Island Railroad was released from the Pennsylvania Railroad, it continued on, largely as a commuter operation. It is today the oldest railroad in the United States currently operating under its original charter, started in 1834. It was only owned by the Pennsy for 50 years. The rest of that time, we were independent. Now we're owned by the state of New York, but that's neither here nor there. But we're still fully operational. We're the largest and busiest commuter railroad in the United States. We have approximately 400 miles of track. We have approximately 125 stations, give or take a few. We just started running into a terminal that belonged to our competitor at one time, Grand Central Terminal. Back at the end of January, we started operating trains into and out of Grand Central.
How many passengers would you say approximately you carry each year? Or each day?
Each day, approximately 350,000 passengers. Service has recently increased by approximately 40%, which Grand Central had open to us. We're about the only commuter railroad in the country that runs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. We don't shut down. We never shut down, and we seldom slow down. Some branches may shut for several hours per night, but the railroad itself keeps soldiering on. You can catch a train from point A to point B on the Long Island Road literally any time of day or night. Always open. Now that we've run into Grand Central Terminal, the drawback is Grand Central closes at about 1:45, 2 a.m. So our last train leaves there, if memory serves, 1:47 a.m. to Port Washington. That said, as a child, I used to go with my mother to work on occasion. She worked for a large insurance company, at the time the largest in the world, TIAA Riff, which is on 47th Street in Lexington Avenue. So we used to get off the train at Grand Central. I would look around in awe, never thinking that I would ever be an engineer operating trains into and out of that terminal, but here we are. And while I'm grateful for the position, I'm grateful for the career, which made us really is important. I do my small part in trying to preserve the history. It may not be much, but it's something. I guess in the end, I'm just glad to be part of the bigger picture. Well, thank you for giving me these few minutes.
One thing I'm sure you can agree with, because there's plenty of remnants of the Pennsylvania Railroad around. I don't know. Those men always thought in terms of what if. Let's put it aside here in case the train gets stalled. What if? Let's put a run around here. What if? Let's have a way to back up the train. I'm sure you see remnants of that. As opposed to today, it's well, let's get to point A, point B. Oh, we'll worry about if that happens, when it happens. The old railroads always had the foresight to think in terms of what if. They've always planned for the worst possible outcome as opposed to today.
Actually, we still have many a passing siding on the Long Island Railroad. In fact, many years ago, before interlockings were developed and automatic Railroad, to my knowledge, left in the United States that still operates that way for 47 miles between Ronkonkoma and Greenport stations on the main line, which is the Long Island Railroad's original branch. We still collect our paperwork before departing Ronkonkoma. We still have to get a clear block from the block operator who's now stationed in Jamaica. And we still use superiority of trains, single track. Both mentioned passing sidings. We still have a few passing sidings out there. Primarily used by freight trains, but passenger trains can and have used them when called on to do so. To me, it's an excellent system. It doesn't rely on electricity. It doesn't rely on technology. If you can read, you can interpret your paperwork, you can obey the rules, you can still operate a trade out manual block with little or no difficulty. I was out there just recently. Between us, it's my favorite part of the Long Island Railroad. Not that I don't love the rest of it, but that's a favorite part of mine. It always has been.
Keeping the ability to keep that stuff around is a very, very, very good idea. Because if the so-called fail-safe system of CTC fails, right away you can implement the manual block system.
Train orders.
And keep rolling simultaneously. Right now, if things fail, it takes forever to figure out who's where, how to keep going. That was also the intent of keeping the towers, was you had the operator who could check the condition of the train. I don't know the year, but the Pennsylvania Railroad had a derailment sometime in the 1950s. It would be much more severe. One tower operator saw a car go by the train, it was questionable, called ahead to the next tower operator, who took the railroad away, which means put up stop signs. Well, the train has been slowed down enough by the previous tower operator where the derailment was not as severe as it could have been. Currently, unless somebody's looking at a TV screen where there's a camera, there is nobody watching trains and their conditions.
I wanted to point out at this point here, we are doing the maximum speed for this 90-ton car, the Francis L. Suter, which is 110 miles per hour.
Even though this is we're on 110 mile an hour track, and down below, trying to get up to 125. We're currently cruising in between New Brunswick and Princeton Junction. We're going through parts of Mercer County right now. We've already went past what was called the Amboy secondary track, which would take you from this area all the way out to South Amboy over part of the Camden and Amboy Railroad, which was the first railroad in the state of New Jersey.